Thank you for coming in. Sure, sure. Please, have a seat. Okay, great. All right. So now what you do is just put on those headphones and you'll be able to hear my voice clearly in your ear. Yes. Right. Okay, good. Now, as you know, I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist. And you just asked me, how did I get started in this? And what would I do if I were you? Okay, a little bit about how this all got started. So, I came from a military family, the last of 7 children. I had one sister, and my mother died when I was very young. I was the last one at home. All of my brothers had already joined the military, like my grandfathers and everyone else had done prior. And my eldest brother was the first in our generation to join the military during the start of the Vietnam War. And having seen a lot of things happen in my hometown, and you hear about things happening to young girls growing up, or they tell you things in middle school that happened to them, or you hear things even in elementary school that kids would come to school talking about that happened to them. And you realized during that era, a lot of fathers were not at home. And a lot of big brothers, protectors, were not at home. And my friends always would come over and talk with me because they always said they liked the sound of my voice, and I always cheered them up. And then I became fascinated with a guy named the Amazing Kreskin, who came out on the Mike Douglas show one day. And then I believe I saw him on another show, on the Tonight Show. And then there was a guy named Uri Geller. And I was just fascinated with these two individuals. As a matter of fact, I still have the original Amazing Kreskin board game. And so when I did a lot of hypnosis training through comic book mail order things where you learn things when you're a child, you could order things out of the comic books. And then I got the opportunity, after I had joined the United States Army in the early 80s, I was stationed in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland. And we had a weekend pass. And I went into a place called Baltimore. Some people call it B-more. And we were always warned to go in groups of 2 or 3 and not to go by ourselves, because people would, for some reason, think it was their mission to harass or to jump young soldiers in their Class A uniforms and take their money. So one weekend we went, and I saw a man unloading some stuff, and a sign said hypnosis training and certification. And I said, "Excuse me, can you tell me about this? How long does it take? How much does it cost?" And he took a liking to me after we talked for a bit. He was my first mentor. His name was Ron Klein. And he was the one that transferred to me his contract of ownership of the American Hypnosis Training Academy 45 some odd years later. shortly before he died, as well as the National Board of Certified Clinical Hypnotherapists. However, the person that was holding the contract held it a little bit too long for some reason. And now, according to the conference that I'll release later of the recording that he wanted me to make sure that everyone knew what his last wishes were, to preserve the sacredness of clinical hypnotherapy so that it would not become a paper mill to where people could just pay a fee and get a certificate saying that they were a certified clinical hypnotherapist, when in fact they have not had the minimum 500 hours of training that I've had initially. So after he trained me that weekend and I got certified, because the certification wasn't 500 hours back then, it was 200 hours. And it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday training. So I stayed there at the hotel he was at, and it was amazing. It didn't come into play, and I didn't get to use it, although he told me I already had a gift, if you will. But the crazy thing was that winter, we had a young drill sergeant. I will not say his name. I'll just call him Drill Sergeant A. And he had some concerns going on in his personal life that caused him to drink a little bit too much. And I don't know if you've ever driven a Jeep Wrangler or Laredo or whatever there were back then in the snow. But if you're going too fast and you're intoxicated, it will roll over. And that's what happened to him. That's how I ended up getting my frostbite injuries and some other things that I'm sure other people did as well. But that's their story to tell. That's not what we're talking about. I'm telling you about how I got to where I am today with hypnosis and clinical hypnotherapy. So to keep everyone calm and focused on not freezing out there in the snow, I used hypnosis, and I just kept talking and motivating and kept talking and kept talking and kept the morale going until finally someone else came, because he had been to the hospital, rolled his Jeep, his arm was broken and all kinds of other things. And we never saw him again until it was graduation day. And I believe I still have the photographs of him when he came over, and I actually got promoted the first time right then. Actually, the second time. So that was the first time I used hypnosis in an official certified hypnotist capacity. And it was incredible. He and I had a long conversation about it afterwards. And I told him, well, you know, hypnosis can help with drinking and with anger. And he just laughed. And that's when the picture was snapped. He was looking over his elbow at me, standing there, smiling, saying, "You're going to be good." And that was the first time, first training. Then time goes on. And since then, I've attended the National Guild of Hypnotists certified training for hypnotists and hypnosis instructors with Don Martin, and my other colleagues there. David Ezel was there. Also, I attended a training, very specific training, which dealt a lot with sexual trauma. And that was rapid resolution practitioner training with John Connolly out of Jupiter, Florida. And that was when I realized that a lot of people were still using Ericksonian hypnosis, although they were placing it in a different shopping basket, if you will, and not really calling it hypnosis. They were calling it their own brand of talk therapy, if you will. And some have been quite successful and some not so much. However, rapid resolution therapy picked up traction and kind of developed like almost a cult following. And everyone that was in my office at Coastal Counseling in Destin, a lot of them attended. Now, whether or not they maintain their certifications now and are still certified, because a lot of them did not get certified. They just went through the training and did not want to be listed on the rapid resolution therapy.com website as a certified practitioner. That was an option. And then it was like maybe $500 every 6 months or something like that. And I also attended the Boston Neurodynamics training for advanced neurofeedback protocols in Boston, Massachusetts. And that's when I realized, after I'd met a very, very interesting man named Patrick Flanagan once, because I was really, really, really into sound, and he explained to me how his devices worked. And so I said, well, I would really like to learn more about it. And he introduced me to Gerald Oster and the Oster curve. And that's when I started understanding how important it was for binaural frequencies to be interwoven into the hypnotic audio sessions. And since I learned to do that, that changed everything. Oh yes, every recording that I make for every client has that in. The subliminals and the binaurals, yes, that's right. Uh-huh. Well, that's when you have one tone, right, being played at a particular frequency, and then you have another tone being played at a step up or a step and a half up. And then when they play together simultaneously, it makes that oscillating sound, and it makes it sound like it is oscillating. Right, that's how that comes. Yes, that's exactly right. And if you use the right frequencies, then that makes it much, much more therapeutic. Yes, that's right. Now, so I also attended the International Association of Interpersonal Hypnotherapists, and that was another 500 hours of certified clinical hypnotherapy training. And there's not a lot of people that I've met that have had as much training as I have, and some are good, some are different. It all depends on the rapport that the hypnotist. No. There's no such thing as a difficult client or a resistant client. There are only poorly trained hypnotherapists, and I'm not one of them. That's right. Okay. So now that we've talked a little bit about me, okay, let's go back into the reason why you came in today. All right. Now I want you to take a deep, slow breath in through your nose. Fill your belly, your rib cage, and your chest. Now slowly exhale through your mouth. Let your chest go down. Let your rib cage go down. And let your belly go flat. And as you breathe out, when you're ready, you can allow your eyes to follow your breath, feeling heavier and heavier as if you're breathing out and it's just taking all the strength away from those eyelids until they finally close comfortably. I want you to take a moment and look back at everything you've been navigating. All the shifting winds, the warm, cold moments, the flickering futures, the mixed signals, the storms you learn to sense before they arrived. You've been living beside a weather vane that turned in ways you couldn't always predict. And yet, you stayed. Not out of confusion, and certainly not out of weakness, but because something in you recognized that the weather wasn't the whole story. And now you know why. Because beneath all those shifting winds, there was a person carrying storms she never asked for. A person who learned very early in life that closeness could be dangerous, that trust could be costly, that safety wasn't guaranteed. A person who built her own internal weather system out of survival, not intention. And she chose you, to tell the truth she's held for years. That matters. It means that even when the winds were unpredictable, she saw something steady in you, something grounded, something kind, something that made her believe. Maybe for the first time in a long time, that she didn't have to weather everything alone. You might not feel like a steady person. You might doubt yourself. You might wonder if you've done enough, or if you're capable of being what she needs. But hear me clearly. She would not have handed you her story if she didn't already trust your heart. Your role is not to control the weather. Your role is not to fix her storms. Your role is not to hold the sky together with your bare hands. Your role, the one she sees in you, is to be the ground. The steady place. The quiet presence. The one who doesn't run when the wind shifts. The one who doesn't take her storms personally. The one who knows that her past shaped her weather, but it doesn't define her future. And you don't have to be perfect to do that. You just have to be consistent. You just have to be gentle. You just have to be honest. You just have to be human. Because the truth is, the weather vane has been spinning for a long time, long before you arrived. But now, for the first time, she's letting someone stand close enough to see why. She's letting someone witness the storm instead of hiding it. She's letting someone hold space for her healing. And that someone is you. Not because you demand it. Not because you forced it. But because your presence made her feel safe enough to open the door. So as her mentor, I want you to remember this. Your steadiness is not small. Your kindness is not unnoticed. Your willingness to stay present is not ordinary. You are part of her healing simply by being a place where the wind doesn't have to blow so hard. And that quiet, grounded, patient presence is more powerful than you realize. Thank you for listening to TruceTalk. FICKLE, the weather vane situation, 12. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, always honor your body. Be kind to your mind and let your spirit be free, because calm is your comeback.